Okay, and now here's chapter 5. Let's talk a little bit about some things that I had mentioned previously that I wanted to just clarify. The Renaissance period is what we're talking about in chapter number 5. In the medieval, the music that was performed and composed during the medieval time, essentially anonymous music, Gregorian chant in the church. Of course, there was secular music at the time. Did it survive? Some of it did survive. Is that music still performed today? Yes. Believe it or not, yes, that music is still performed today. In concerts that you'll see, and hopefully you'll be able to see this happening in the concerts that you'll be a concert that you'll be attending during this course, is that what typically happens when a concert is programmed, a performer will perform music from an earlier time, and will then perform music from a later time after that, and a time after that, and a time after that. It's been a tradition to do that with music, and so the beginning of a concert would be earlier music. Now, sometimes that music will go back to the medieval, sometimes it will go back to the Renaissance. Most of the time, however, concerts will begin with Baroque music. There is not much Renaissance music, as much Renaissance music performed today as music beyond that, and you'll see why soon. But in the Renaissance, in the beginning of the Renaissance, and again, I don't think I've mentioned it, but the dates for these time periods are not set in stone. It wasn't, it didn't on January 1st, 1450, trumpets went off and it was declared, well, this is the Renaissance. Here we are, ladies and germs. Not the way it happened. We sort of, have to pinpoint these dates somewhere, and so we kind of, indicate that 1450 would be a good starting point. The power of the church is waning. If you look at your history, and also power of kings and royalty was waning as well. If you look at your history, there was a schism in the church in the first century of the second millennium, somewhere around 10, I can't remember, 1050, the exact dates, but there was a schism in the church where the Eastern Orthodox Church began and started doing things quite differently than the Catholic Church. And that caused a lot of problems, let's just put it that way. And music changed because of that. Also, if you, again, look at your history, you'll see that the Magna Carta was written, and that was written, I believe, in the 13th century, and that gave power to the middle class. And suddenly merchants who were making all this money wanted some recognition. And so the power of the middle class started to really make itself known. And so the talented people at that time started putting their name to music. I wrote this, so I'm going to put my name to it. So that's why we have names like Josquin du Pré, who put his name to his secular music, to his sacred motets, which we're going to be hearing. The Ave Maria is a sacred motet. And this is a great piece of music. A couple of words that you need to know and understand. A cappella is a term that we still use today. And a cappella means without instrument accompaniment. It means solo voices without instrument accompaniment. So a cappella is a term you need to know. Getting back to Josquin du Pré, he was the guy who I think is credited with really bringing polyphony or polyphonic texture to the music world. And he's the guy that wrote the best at the time. And it's just beautiful stuff. You'll hear it on the Ave Maria. And the Ave Maria begins with a section that introduced the text, Ave Maria, and it introduces it with the four voices: soprano, then alto, then tenor, then bass. And you'll hear that in the very beginning of track 2. The texture then is polyphonic in the beginning. Near the end of that, it goes to a homophonic texture where everyone is singing at the same time. They're singing the rhythms at the same time. Exactly at the same time? No, but we can say with a great deal of certainty that, it's the same rhythm at the same time. The concepts of triple meter, the meter in this music is 3 to indicate, and with purpose, du Pré did this with purpose, to indicate the concept of the Trinity, the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in the Catholic Church, and that was done on purpose. Palestrina, he is the guy that's credited with saving polyphony. 1517, I believe, is when Martin Luther stamped his protests to the door of a church, And he was a monk. He was a Catholic monk, and he was fed up with many of the things that were happening in the Catholic Church. There were some, some things that he had some valid concerns with. His actions, certainly didn't intend to start a new church, but his actions had repercussions around Europe where a Reformation began. And so the Protestant Reformation really began in the early 16th century. Well, to counter that, the Catholic Church came up with their own reforms to do what's called the Counter-Reformation. Well, the music followed. And Palestrina was the guy who was credited as for saving polyphony. The Pope at the time wanted to get rid of polyphonic music. It was too busy. It was too much melisma. Too many notes happening all over the place. The text was not to be understood very well. He wanted to go back to Gregorian chant. You could understand the text. Everybody could sing it. Well, Palestrina's music was so beautiful, and by the way, he named a mass after the Pope at the time, which helps quite a bit. The Pope Marcellus Mass is the one I'm referring to. It was so beautiful that people decided, you know what, let's keep the polyphonic texture going, and thank God it did, because it's very, very beautiful. Madrigals in Italy and France and Germany all have different names, but madrigals being secular music, performing in those four parts that I was describing, and this is the beginning of music that we have now understood to be music that is sung at home, and people have been singing in public and instead of in the church. Okay, so this is the Renaissance. This is where things are really opening up. Art is opening up, music is opening up, and the concepts of human interaction with the music has really been set up. So let me go to chapter number 6 next, which is the Baroque, and I'll be right back.